So I had a bad temper, and that's also probably what attracted me to the roller derby, because that was also a situation or an environment where you could let out all your physical aggression in an arena that was acceptable. You couldn't act like that on the street, but you could punch somebody and not, there was no repercussion for it. You didn't get in trouble. And it's not that I loved doing that, it's just that it was an opportunity to really release a lot of pent-up hostility and anger and frustration. All those years of having to put a lid on it, I could just let it out.
Welcome to Laine's Domain, where we deconstruct the game of life one player at a time. Today's special guest is John. We call him California Cool. Welcome, John. So glad you're here today.
Thank you, Laine. It's great to be here. What an introduction. Thank you.
Okay, so you said, the irony of, your mom going to her obstetrician or whatever, saying, hey, I got two little babies. I need to calm down, and he gives her cigarettes and amphetamines. I mean, it's like, wow. So this caused damage to you, and you said that you had grand mal seizures as a baby. How has that changed now? Are you still having anything like that?
No, that was when I was an infant. I got home from the hospital. I think it lasted for a week or two. It wasn't a long standing. I never had any kind of seizures in my life.
Okay, great. Okay, so, but you still were sitting in your playpen as a quiet little toddler, as your mom was like trying to take care of three of them, including Pat. How much younger was Pat than you?
Well, Pat was the fourth. I had my sister Sheila was the first, my brother Mike was the second, and then I was the third. When my mom got pregnant with me, she was, she had two toddlers. Nobody knows, nobody's given a lesson on how to raise children. So what happened was she was wiped out from, the kids would keep her up at night. The baby, you know how that goes. And then she gets pregnant again. Being a Catholic, that's, you deal with your pregnancies and you accept your children lovingly. So my mother was pregnant, and she was telling the doctor how wiped out she was. And so he said, well, the doctor thought it'll be a good idea if he gives her amphetamine, speed, and suggests cigarette smoking. So she smoked like a chimney, and she took amphetamines while she was pregnant with me. And then, like I said, when I got home from the hospital, I had some seizures. Of course, I don't remember this. My sister told me. And then later, my mother talked to me about it a little bit. And and then when I was 3 months old, she got pregnant with Pat. So there wasn't much time. She had the two needy toddlers, probably crying and needing assistance and supervision. And then I was a quiet baby. I was not like, when Pat was born, he was a demanding baby. Pat knew how to get his needs met. He was in your face, and he was not afraid to push and push and push. I wasn't like that, I guess. I was more passive. I was in the playpen, and my mom would tell me later as an adult, she said, I felt so guilty because you were such a good baby. You never cried, and I stayed in the playpen. So the thing that I think probably was my saving grace in those times was the fact that I have an incredibly vivid imagination. And I used to be I didn't mind being alone because all I had to do was close my eyes. It was better than television. It was Technicolor. I had a very active and fertile imagination. So, that's the good that I got from this, becoming a creative person, a visual artist. All of those things were helped by not having too much stimulation that was outer. What I suffered from was I didn't get connected with. You sit in a playpen, you're not getting picked up and cooed. I wasn't crying apparently, so I didn't get that connection that babies need. We know now babies really need that, and I suffered from that. The way I suffered was the drugs, the amphetamines, I'm sure are the reason I had the ADHD and obsessive OCD I had. And I say had, I still have them, but they're not a problem for me really anymore. I know how to use them, and I know how to avoid the pitfalls of them. I've just learned over time. I don't take any medication, and but getting back to that early childhood experience, I didn't get the connectedness that I needed. Therefore, later in life, when it was time to connect intimately with people, it was like foreign. I couldn't do it. And it was very, I wanted to, but I just could not do it. I didn't know how to do it. It wasn't wired into me because it was a feeling that it was them against me. So that was a challenge. And I discovered roller derby by the time I was in the 7th grade. I could have cared less about it, but my brother was watching it on television. And I was getting ready to go outside to play with a friend. And he said, "John, look at this." And I loved it. And I just thought it was so wild and exciting and theatrical. It had a lot of elements that I liked. My family was very sports oriented. I was not good in sports. I didn't like playing them. I was kind of forced to do that to be a man. You have to go out for football. You have to do this. It wasn't in me. I didn't like it. But this I loved because it was so over the top, wild characters, interviews, I knew there was showmanship to it, but I didn't care. I thought it was just an exciting form of entertainment, and I wanted to do that myself. But skating, roller derby is a completely different type of skating. It's not a flat surface, it's a banked track, 35 or 45 degree angle on the high turn. And it never looked that banked on television, but when you're on that track, and even on the straightaway, if you fall, you'll slide into the infield. It's steep, but that's how you generate your speed. You'll take a whip off the high end of the track, sometimes a 2-person whip, and you get catapulted like a rocket. It was exciting.
So it wasn't fake fighting like they have on the, WWF.
There was no fake fighting. They didn't let their punches. They didn't pull their punches. Let me tell you, you got hit hard, and I suppose if some of the big people, they probably pulled their punches, because they knew each other. But I never got to that point where I felt anything but the full-on force of. I got hit in the head from behind once, so hard that I didn't even see it coming. It was a total cheap shot, and I got punched in the head. And as I went forward, everything went into slow motion. The screaming of the audience, and the last thing I remembered was I knew I was hit, and somehow I turned my body and I swung my left leg as hard as I could, and I kicked the skates out from under the person who hit me. So he hit me and he took a bad fall, and then that was it. It wasn't like a knockdown drag out. They would do that, and so would I. Sometimes if I didn't like somebody who I thought was a jerk, I'd take him out. Not proud of it, I just did.
What was the name of your team?
Well, I skated for roller games, which had the New York Bombers and the Chicago Hawks. That's who I skated for.
Those two?
Those two teams. This was like 1976 through 78. What happened was our team, when I was on the Chicago Hawks in 1978, were having a series with the Los Angeles Thunderbirds. It was called the World Series. So it was a 7-game series, and we had just finished skating the 6th game the night before. I woke up Sunday morning and started to think, we have one more game next week. And then I got this sudden ominous feeling. I just had a knowing that I was going to get injured. And I never, ever worried about getting injured. I wasn't afraid at all. I got injured, but not seriously. And so my intuition just kept gnawing at me. Like, I'm going to get a life change. I'm going to break my neck or my back. And And I just, at that point, it wouldn't go away for about 2 days. And I remember, like, on the third morning, I just thought, I'm not, I can't go. I'm not getting, I have no insurance coverage. I'm not going to get a pension if I get hurt. I'm going to get nothing. So I just said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not able to go anywhere with it, So it was costing me more in gas than I would get paid, plus all the training sessions I would go to. But I still view it as a very important experience. And I also appreciate the fact that my intuition told me when to stop. It was a knowing, and I know I'm right, so I would never second guess my intuition. Those kinds of things don't happen often. And if they do, I think you better pay attention to them. I can guarantee you I would have really been injured. So I stopped.
So you speak about your intuition, and that you had developed that in childhood. Do you have any other stories from when you were a child when the intuition would tell you something?
Well, I just remember when I was 4, I just felt like I'd lived for eternity. I felt like this, I wasn't 4. I knew that there was this life that I was part of, but I couldn't understand. And I said, Mom, am I about 100? And she said, no, honey, you're 4. But I just, I never, what can I say? I just didn't understand how I would have these intuitions, these feelings. For example, when I was 8, one of my cousins got married and I watched the wedding, went there, it was great, beautiful reception at a country club. And at a certain point during the reception, there was a golf course near there, so I kind of climbed up on one of the hills and I was looking down at it. And I knew, I was 8, but I knew in that moment, I'll never be married. And it wasn't like, 8-year-olds don't want to be with the girls, it's creepy. It wasn't that. It was just this knowing that this is not going to be my life. I knew it. And, and then I thought, well, maybe something will change and I will. And, but I just had a feeling that there was a knowledge within me that was telling me that this was not going to be my path, so to speak. And it was right. So it was just a knowing. Things like somebody would suddenly say they lost something and I could see where it was. Did you check the second door on the left? Oh, they'd say, are you telling me you're psychic? I say, I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you, when you told me that, that's what I saw. We would go upstairs and we would find it. Things like that, just knowings. I had an experience once as a kid where I was looking at the ceiling. I was maybe 15 and it was getting to be about dusk, I think. We had those cottage cheese ceilings back in those days. I'm looking up and I'm just looking at it. And all of a sudden I was looking, well, our little dog was trying to jump up on the bottom of the foot of the bed. And so I suddenly was looking through her eyes. I was out of my body, looking at my feet up on the bed through her eyes. I had an entire process of thinking that was not in English. It was all in a feeling, emotional thing. I remember looking at the room and just the dimensions were huge and the ceiling was gigantic. And I remember I could see straight ahead, but it was like no peripheral. It was cloudy on the sides and it was in black and white and gray. It wasn't color. And then that just lasted maybe 10 or 15 seconds. I snapped myself out of it. And I thought, what happened? I didn't tell anybody about it. I thought they would think I was crazy, but that really happened. It's never happened since, but it was an amazing experience. So I would have insights or knowings or premonitions. There's a painting that I did. I'm jumping around, but I used to go up to the Esalen Institute all the time. I mean, I spent a good part of my life there over the years, working with this wonderful mentor, Lee Hyams, who was my painting teacher, and then a group of the most incredibly talented painters and just great people who we became wonderful friends with. And anyway, one day, I was doing a lot of non-representational abstract work. And then just one day, out of nowhere, I did this strange, dark narrative painting. And I remember my friend Joanna and I were looking at it. I said, this is so weird. Look at this. She just said, it's a little ominous. And I said, I know. I don't know where this stuff comes from. In the painting were 2 doors, 2 just dark shapes. And there was an ambulance. And there was a person in flesh, which I now take to be myself. But behind it is a figure in blue with its hand on the shoulder. And so what happened was 2 months later, I got very ill and I had to be hospitalized twice. So the two dark doors were the hospital. The ambulance was going in there. It was like, there's no turning back. This is in your immediate future. It was like looking at a tarot card that told the whole story of the event that was to come. So I ended up calling that painting premonition, because it totally accurately predicted what was to come. But I didn't have any knowing of that when I painted it. I just thought it was this weird painting, and it was kind of a dark piece. So
you've had that gift your whole life, and it's fascinating to hear the different ways that has come to you, and amazing. Well, let me ask you a question. We're going to go back a little bit. You came from a very the kids were athletic, the boys were athletic, and you weren't interested in athletics the way they were. And then you said you found at a certain age that you had same-sex attraction. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, I think when you're a kid, I didn't think about sex. It was just, I was an innocent kid. But when I was 15, I noticed that I was thinking about that, and it really disturbed me, because that was like 69, 70. And as much of a cultural revolution that we were going through in the 60s, still being gay, homosexuality was still very much kept down. I mean, there was not one out person. So when I started to identify with this, I grew up Catholic. I grew up with a strong faith, and my family was very faithful, very strong religious family. And I mean, and I was too, because I went to the school, I was taught about God and Jesus, and, all of the commandments, everything, it was really emphasized and stressed in our family. So when I started to have these feelings, it just scared me. I was so upset about it, and I just would push it away, because it was, something that I felt ashamed of, because all I heard were jokes that made gay people seem like they were total crazy perverts, and the Bible said that it's an abomination. So I had nothing that was positive. And so, like I said, there weren't people like today that are out, that are, living their lives and normally. But back then, it was, in my mind, it was every homophobic thing I had ever heard, from the schoolyard, from the family, from, it was just the way it was, So I pushed that down. And about the same time at 15, and I was depressed about it, because I had a lot of anxiety. I didn't want to go to hell. And I thought that's what was going to happen to me. That was going to happen to me. And I just didn't want to be rejected. I felt I would be completely rejected. And so I started smoking pot, which was a wonderful escape from this all, because I would laugh and laugh and laugh. And, I got high practically every day of my life moving forward, because it pushed down the anxiety, it pushed down the fear, it pushed down the feelings of rejection. And, but as we all know, substance abuse doesn't solve any problems. It just postpones dealing with them. So, but that's how I coped.
So how did you rectify that? Did you accept yourself at any point?
It took a long time, actually, because honestly, I didn't feel like I belonged in my family. I didn't. And then when I first started meeting some friends, gay friends, I remember going to a party when I was young, probably a Halloween party. And I was all excited. I thought, oh, we'll meet some new people. Somebody there made some snide remark about me. And I turned to see who it was. And everybody was quiet. And then I turned again, and it was another nasty remark. And so I was, I was an insecure kid. And I also took everything personally. I mean, it was directed at me. But I remember I left, and then I felt it was they. They don't like me, or I don't fit. It was one comment, but I took it to heart. And so I didn't feel like I belonged there either. So it was a weird time, in my life, because I didn't feel connected.
Lights go out and I can't be saved. Tides that I tried to swim against brought me down.
feel connected from the early childhood. My parents were wonderful people. They had the best intentions. Had they known, I'm sure they would have done things differently. But they had no compass. They had no way of understanding what I was dealing with. And, I think that the thing that hurt me was that I feel that my family thought that somehow I was doing this on purpose to bring shame to the family, or that I was choosing to do this. They didn't understand that there was nothing that I could do about it. I wanted to. That was the other thing. I believed very much in religion. And I remembered nuns, because we had nuns that taught us. And they would say, if you pray to Jesus with a sincere heart, he will answer your prayers. So I would pray, oh, please, please, I don't want to be gay. Just make me normal, please. And I would pray and cry and put everything I had into it. And then what I noticed was, after I said my piece, there was just a void. There was nothing, zero. It was like talking on a phone call with nobody there. And that was traumatic, because I trusted and I believed in this higher power.
So did you ever come to terms with your parents with being gay at all, or was...
Yes. But with my mother, I did, because she came up to me many years later and she just said, I want you to know how sorry I am that I wasn't there for you when you came out. Because she didn't understand, and I really appreciated it. My father, not so much. When he was getting ready to, he just wouldn't acknowledge it. We couldn't go there. Let's talk about something else. And I remember when he was getting close to dying, he just said, so we're good, right? And I said, yeah, we're good, Dad. Because what am I going to say? It's like, I don't need any affirmations or support at that point in my life. I'm already well taken care of, and in a good place.
Did you ever have any idea that we would be in a place today where it's not only accepted, it's trendy?
Well, but there's a backlash against that today, too.
Is
There's
there?
a lot of people that are very threatened by gay rights. And, so yes, I never thought it would be as open as it is, but there's also a backlash. And,
So are you always guarded in a way, or do you feel free in most of the time?
I feel free most of the time. I also feel like, when I was young, I used to have experiences of being bullied. Not horrible, not like getting my brains bashed in, but pushing and slapping and you're a pussy and this kind of stuff. And so I developed such a defensive reaction to that. I didn't care who they were. If they were bigger than me, I remember this, I was about 10 and there was a 13-year-old kid does the pushing, slapping, no reason. And I couldn't do anything about it. I was about ready to cry. I remember that, because my chin started quivering. And then I went home. Well, that was that, until a couple of days later, I saw him riding his bicycle up the street to go back to the neighbor's house. And in that moment, it all came back. I rushed out of the house, ran across the lawn, and took a big cheap shot, and I punched him in the face and knocked him to the ground. And later, I remembered I felt like a coward for doing that, because he couldn't protect himself. But then as an adult, I thought, no, I would never do that to anybody. But he should have never done that to me, and that never would have happened. So I had a bad temper. And that's also probably what attracted me to the roller derby, because that was also a situation or an environment where you could let out all your physical aggression in an arena that was acceptable. You couldn't act like that on the street, but you could punch somebody and there was no repercussion for it. You didn't get in trouble. And it's not that I loved doing that. It's just that it was an opportunity to really release a lot of pent-up hostility and anger and frustration. All those years of having to put a lid on it, I could just let it out. And what I think was fantastic was the skating was rough. I got a couple of concussions. I broke my tailbone a couple of times, separated a shoulder, cracked a rib. So consequently, your body takes a hit. When I stopped doing it, I just remember my back would hurt all the time and my neck would hurt. I'd been in some car accidents, gotten bad whiplashes. And so I just remember suffering, and I would work on myself. Like, I'd feel the muscles and I'd go into points, and I knew exactly what I needed done to me, but I didn't even know there was such a thing as massage therapy. So I would work on people to show them what to do. It was all about me, really. But here, I'd work on them, and then they loved it. People would call me, and that eventually led to me going to become a massage therapist. So if it hadn't been for skating, I would have never gotten there. So everything about life is a cause and effect situation. So, I have the staying in the playpen, and I have the seizures and the ADHD and all those things, but those also create an ability for me to be very, very creative. And then that translated into becoming a painter. So my art was really helped by that. So I have no regrets about anything, even though it was hard. And I remember how hard it used to be emotionally for me. It took me a long time to feel comfortable in my skin, and I had to work hard to get there. But it's been worth it, and I really have a fantastic life and an interesting path. My life has been a lot of ups and downs, roller coaster rides, but I've gotten to experience a lot of interesting things and unconventional things in my life that I love that I did those things. I love that I skated. I love that I quit when I did. I got what I needed out of it and moved on. That was it.
So, how did you make that transition to massage therapy from roller skating? Obviously, you had injuries and you knew how to help people, but what made you decide to go to massage therapy school and do this as a profession?
Well, because I had become a skater, I didn't go to college. I had some junior college. So I really was then at a place in my life where I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was working in a restaurant in Ventura, California, which is near where I lived. And I remember one of the people who worked there was a woman who was a waitress, and she had a back problem. And I said, "Oh, I can help you with that." So I went to work on her, and she loved what I did. And I mean, I wasn't charging for it. But she said, "Why don't you become a massage therapist?" And I remember saying, "Is there such a thing?" Because I had never had one. All I knew is I thought it was like massage parlors. I heard about those, but that didn't have any interest for me. And then she said, "No, I have a friend who just joined a class. Literally, it just started." I said, "You're kidding. What's the name of it?" She told me the name of the school. I stopped working on her and I called them up right there on information. I called information, got the number. They answered the phone, said, "Look, we just started a new class. Why don't you just come tomorrow? You don't have to pay anything. Stay for the day. And if you like it, stay. If you don't know. So no, you don't have to pay." So that was a good proposition to me. So the next day I was in school, and that's what I became. I didn't plan on it. See, that's another thing. It's like a spiritual guidance thing to me. It's like I didn't plan it, but I went with it. I think it appeared, and I took it. And I went for it. And I actually loved it.
Well, you are amazingly talented at it. So let me ask you a question then. Once you finished massage school and you went out and started working with people, how did you segue into massaging Hollywood celebrities and musicians and the like?
Well, I worked at a health spa called the Oaks at Ojai, which is now closed. But I got a job there, and I didn't even last a year because what happened was I met a lot of people from LA, which is an hour and a half away. And they'd always say, "Oh, if you ever come, here's my number." So I took down names, I took down numbers. But one of the more memorable people who came was a woman named Patricia Eltinge, who had come to the Oaks for 3 weeks because she'd been a model for many, many years and starved herself. And then she went to Paris to do a modeling shoot. I think it was with Grace Jones, if I can remember correctly. After she was done with that shoot, she had it with all of the dieting. She said she hit pastries on every single corner in Paris. And so she put on like 35 pounds. And so she came there to take the weight off. And so we immediately hit it off. She walked into that room and we just became instant friends. And to this day, I'm still friends with her, 48, 47 years later, whatever it is. And so she did modeling and she did some acting, and she was very connected, to celebrities. And so she would suggest that I go see her friends. She'd call them up and, you know, manipulate them into having me, because she would point her finger. How many clients do you have today? And I said, well, just one. She goes, well, you need to. She was very professionally oriented, and she'd shake her finger. You need to, assert yourself. And she'd get on the phone and call her friends, and then the next thing you know, I'm going over to their house. And so that's how that took off. She had a friend, a wonderful actress, beautiful person named Marion Jensen, who was in a TV series. I can't remember. It'll come to me. But anyway, she was just a beautiful person inside and out. I mean, she was a really good person. And then I would go to see her boyfriend, who she lived with, Don. I didn't know it was Don Henley from the Eagles, but because I knew the Eagles, but I didn't know who he was until, I saw them all the time. And one day I saw a guitar that said the Eagles. So that's how that started. And from there it was, and I worked at a place called the Ashram too, in LA for a couple of years. And they certainly had a lot of celebrities there. So I would work on people like Barbra Streisand, Shirley MacLaine, many, I can't even remember now. We're talking a long time ago. And so some of them would have me privately. So over time, I just had a lot of television people, music people, call me. And so my 20s and 30s were spent really seeing a lot of celebrities. And everybody thought it was so great. And it was nice. It was interesting. But you have to understand, I was so busy back in those days. I could never say no to anybody. There were times I would literally do 9 deep tissue sessions in a day, and I would be wiped out on the weekends. But I would push myself. That's what I learned from skating. Just push through it. That was what I was trying to say earlier. Not just do it, just push through it. And so I would do that. I can remember like working on somebody's feet while I'm like trying to nap at the same time. But I was like a machine. But I'm serious. I was exhausted, but I just would keep going and going and going. So I didn't really have time to smell the roses and appreciate the unique position I was in. It was just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And was kind of like being a workaholic, I guess. But
Well, you learned how to do it, how to manage your body, your energy.
like, I don't know how my body is still serving me today because I'm still working. I still carry that damn table around. I still do 90-minute deep tissue sessions. I can't do more than 3 of them in a day. So, I mean, I've cut way back. And, but still, after all the injuries from skating, I had at least 4 severe whiplashes from car accidents, being hit from behind. I've spent a lot of time under chiropractic care and physical therapy, but all in all, I still feel very strong, and luckily I still have a lot of energy.
Can you, without any stories about them, can you throw out just some of the names of the celebrities besides Barbara Streisand and Shirley MacLaine that
Well,
you
Barbara
have?
Streisand was not a private client. I just worked on her one time. So
Right.
she was just because she was at the ashram. Shirley MacLaine, I worked a few times at her home. And I had the pleasure of knowing Deborah Winger, who was one of my favorite people on the planet. She was just, you read all these things about people. I found her to be one of the most honest, most grounded people. No BS. She was just an authentic human being, a wonderful mother to her kids, and a fantastic actress. And she was very, very smart. I loved her intelligence. I loved her authenticity. And she was a caring person. So she was great. Um, Catherine Bach was a client for a long time. And she was just one of the nicest people. She had great energy. She took an art class with me because we would hang out, and I invited her to an art class, and she just picked it up so fast. She was really, really good. She could have been a good painter. Great mother. She was just, again, I have nothing bad to say about anybody because all of my interactions with celebrities were positive. They saw me at the door. I'm there to relieve them of their stresses, of their challenges. So that was cool. Jean Simmons, she was an actress who, I was so stupid because I didn't know who anybody was. Most of the time I'd see these people, I didn't even know they were celebrities. So I meet Jean Simmons. I didn't know she was a movie star. She had a beautiful home, and I was trying to figure out, I wonder what she does. I knew her for probably a few months before I ran into the friend who referred me to her. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much. She's so nice. What does she do?" And he looks at me and goes, "She's a movie star, John." And I had no idea because she just never, ever talked about that. And she was one of my nearest and dearest friends for at least 30 years. Beverly Sassoon was a friend of mine. She used to date Eric Estrada. He was a client, and I met her through him. We're friends to this day. And just such a fun person. We would travel. I would go with her to Acapulco sometimes, and just, just I can't tell you how much I love her. And she's just such a kind person. I was around her family growing up, and so we go way, way back. I'm trying to think other people. Yeah, oh, Cary Grant. Yes, Cary Grant was a client of mine when I remember I got a call from his wife, and she said, "Yes, John, this is Mrs. Grant calling. My husband and I would like massages." And I remember thinking, Lou Grant? No, that's a TV character. Well, then I went over to the house and I buzzed and I went in and I'm carrying my table and I'm halfway into the living room and out he comes and he goes, "Hello, I'm Cary Grant." And I just acted very calm. I said, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I'm John McCarthy." Da, da. And I'm thinking, Cary Grant, I had no idea it was going to be him. So I worked on him, and his wife was getting late for her appointment. This was a very hot day in August of, I'm going to say, 1983. And he said, "Well, she's going to be another 15 or 20 minutes." And he said, "It's hot. Would you like to jump in the pool?" And so I just said, "Well, I don't have a bathing suit." He goes, "Well, it's completely private." It was down a hill. And so I said, "Okay." And I just remember diving in the water and coming up and thinking, I'm swimming in Cary Grant's pool. It was funny, but he was a down to earth, really nice man. And so I loved his wife too. I mean, I didn't really know them all that well. I maybe worked on him a dozen times, maybe a little more, but I just remember liking her very much. They were both down to earth people. And his daughter Jennifer came once for a massage. So yes, I mean, I knew a lot of people. I miss these people. A lot of them I don't see anymore. I haven't seen in years, but we had our times together.
That's very exciting. And so while you were massaging, though, you started into your painting. Now, had you happened to read that Betty Edwards book?
Yes,
Reading, that Jeff
drawing on the right
Evans.
side of the brain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dr. Jeff Evans, the dentist,
I know him well.
told told you about that book because that is a memory. And
I do
then
remember it because I didn't remember that he gave me that idea for that book, and I'm glad you told me because that's the reason I got the book. And yes, that was a fantastic book, and I still recommend that to people looking who might be interested in learning how to draw, well. But so what happened with me was this. Okay, I told you about the pot pushing things down. So I'd smoked a lot of pot in my day. Also, Hollywood, back in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody was doing cocaine. It was just a given. Everybody did it. And so, I just remember getting back to being shy. I felt very confident when I would work on people because I felt that I knew what I was doing and I got good responses from my clients. But I was very shy in terms of just sitting down and talking. And I was the guy who would sit there on the couch with the arms folded and giving one word answers. Yes, uh-huh, no, yes. No. Well, I remember one guy I think he may have been a television writer or something, living up in Laurel Canyon. And I was very shy and kind of shut down you know, and giving one syllable answers to his questions. And then he said, "Would you like a little toot?" A little bit of blow. And I said, "Sure." And I just remember taking two sniffs and then jumping about 10 seconds later, I jumped off that couch and said, "Oh my God, your view is incredible here." Well, I came out of my shell. And of course, I wouldn't shut up after that, but it got me going. It made me feel this false confidence. So I was off and running with that for quite a while. I never became horribly addicted to it, but I did it on a regular basis. In the beginning, I liked it and it was really effective. then it would become something where I would just want to isolate and do it. That's not healthy. It, would take me up a little bit, but mostly it would cause me to feel depressed afterwards. But still, like I'd say, I'm never going to do this again. And then a few days later, I would keep doing it. Well, one day in 1982, I just kind of took an assessment. I kind of started to do some bookkeeping and figuring out how much I'd spent on this stuff. And I realized it was a lot of money. And I just had one of those aware aha moments. And I thought, that's a lot of money. It was like $2,300 I had spent over, say, 6 months. That was like $10,000 today. And I was shocked that I said, well, if I'm just going to throw my money away on this, what else could I do for it besides this? Because this isn't working for me anymore. And I suddenly remembered my friend Barbara Tremblay, who had suggested painting to me. And she told me there was an art teacher that she knew. And so I just thought, art classes, that's what I'm going to do. I could get 4 private 3-hour art classes for the price of 1 vial of cocaine. And that was it. I never did it again. I just was done. And then I started taking art classes. And I'll tell you that it was so good to find a healthy outlet for my creativity. And even though some of those early paintings and drawings that I did are clumsy, if you will, I still just appreciate how hard I struggled to learn how to do it. It was a huge challenge, and I was very committed to it, even though it would frustrate me so much. I can't believe my friends would hear me complaining about a painting I was working on, and my friend Rosemary said, why don't you just stop? And I said, no, I can't. There was no way I could stop doing it, but it was tough. But, here it is, however, 40 plus years later, and I have a huge body of work that I'm very proud of. I mean, I've certainly sold some, but I have a lot. And I love art. I love it. I love expressing. I like discovering new things. I used to do realism, but I found that I wanted to discover through the process of painting something new. And so just copying a photograph or even a scene, to me, was just like, why don't I just take a picture? If I want to invent something, I want to go inside and just let one step take me to the next, take me to the next. And so I really love that creative process of discovery. Like I said, that painting that predicted my illness, I didn't expect that. I didn't know I was going to paint that. That was a total surprise to me. To watch this, what do you call it, a narrative painting tumble out of me, and at the time mean nothing, but later tell me everything I needed to know. That's powerful. And then this wonderful teacher, mentor, Lee Hyams, she taught not only at Esalen, and by the way, she had me be her lead assistant. So for many, many, many years, I would go like 3 times a year for a week at a time and get to paint. And then she also would take us on trips to the Caribbean, Great Caribbean island, and to Mexico on several trips. And then she moved to San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, at some point. And so she gave me a 5-week scholarship to work with her one-on-one in 2006. So that was an introduction to Mexico. That place was great. To me, it's just one of the wonderful, it's spiritual work, painting. I don't mean it in the sense that it's a spiritual path, but I don't want to make it sound too heavy, but just that ability to discover something new is exciting.
So, John, if you were to look at your paintings and look at the painting process, what have you learned about yourself through this artistic expression?
Well, from being in the playpen, that imagination that was cultivated then is still there, and it's so powerful. And I'm proud to own it. To have it. It's a huge gift to be able to trust enough in the process to just leap. There's this Melanie line. Melanie, the singer, has a line in a song that says, "You gotta feel for the ground, reach for the sky, leap off the edge, and see if you fall or fly." And that's what I always felt when I'd started painting. Sometimes you have trepidation, you have that void, you have the blank canvas or paper, and you don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something. So off you go, and it doesn't always turn out, but if you keep at it, you know, you do eventually get to something that works for you.
I want to segue into your psychic work, because when your brother passed, you've had some experiences with him coming to you, and you have a new avenue of study or expression.
When Pat died, you know, I'll never forget, I had gone up to visit my sister-in-law in Ventura and spent the night. On my way home, my neighbor from downstairs had sent me a text saying, well, you were sure moving a lot of furniture around last night. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I heard you. I said, no, I was not here last night. He goes, well, I definitely heard it. And I even was joking, saying, well, maybe it's spirit, you know. I get home, and I had vacuumed the carpet before I left, so the carpet still looked fine. There was no footprints, no furniture moved. So I forgot about it. Well, later that afternoon, somebody came over and I did a massage with her. We'd stopped at my table. We sat and had a cup of tea before I went to work. And then when she was leaving, I said, oh, excuse me, Kathy. And I pushed the chair back into the table. And then I walked downstairs with her to say goodbye. When I came back up, the chair was pulled out. So I knew then, I just said, Pat. I knew it was him. I just don't know why I knew it was him. I didn't see him. I've never seen him. So then the next day, this happened like 5 days in a row, I had some experiences. So the next night, I'm on the telephone with my friend Diane, chatting away, and the TV turns on. Now, my television needs 2 remotes to do it. So I had this sneaking suspicion, and I kept talking. I didn't say anything. I turned it off, and I tossed the remote away, and I'm talking. It comes on again. And I just said, my brother's here. And so then she said, what do you mean? And I told her. Everybody thinks I'm batshit crazy anyway. I don't really care what they think. I know what I experienced. That's all that I care about. The night after that, I'm getting ready to wash my face, and I'm walking from my bedroom into the bathroom to wash my face, and I see this shadow peripherally. Well, I turn, and it was a shadow with Pat's silhouette. And he was like trying to tiptoe. Well, he used to do that. He was very clumsy. Pat would try to hide from you, and 3 things would crash and fall because he was a klutz. I started laughing so hard. I said, you idiot. I can't see you anyway. Why are you trying to hide from me? This is stupid. And then I remember one morning I was making my tea, and I said to him, I didn't say anything to him. I was making my tea, and I was thinking, oh, I'll call Pat, because he had still only been gone about 7 months. You still get in these habits of calling your loved ones after they die, and you go, oh, I can't, you know. So when I realized I couldn't, I was finishing my tea, and I said, I just talked to him like he was there. And I said, oh, Pat, I wish you were here. I would love to talk to you, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate that you're coming around. You still make me laugh my ass off. And I want you to always continue to be with me and show me signs and symbols so I know it's you. I kid you not. And I will send you the picture. I took my cup of tea. At that moment, I walked into my bedroom. We're talking, it took 30 seconds to put it down on my nightstand. And then I turned and looked outside, and the whole sky was blue, except one white cloud that was doing this. Pat was so irreverent. He's giving me the bird. I could not stop laughing, because it's like, I can just hear him, oh, you want a sign? I'll show you. Here's your sign. And so I don't even grieve for him anymore, because I know he's here. I have my brother Frank turned 64 on June 21st, and they had a party the 22nd of June. And I was driving from Los Angeles to their house, which is an hour away. I'm on the 405 freeway. There I am driving along, minding my own business. And beep, beep, beep. The dashboard light goes on and it says passenger seatbelt. It wouldn't stop. I had to plug it. I knew it was him. I knew it was him because I'm going to my brother's loved family gatherings. But the thing that was interesting was when I got to the party, I was saying hi to everybody, and my older sister Sheila was there. And I said, "Well, you're going to love this, but Pat's with us." And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, the passenger seatbelt light went off." Her mouth dropped and she says, "John, I don't believe it. That happened to me over on the way here too." Her passenger seatbelt went off on the way to the party, both of them. I said, "Has that ever happened to you in your life?" "No." I said, "It hasn't happened to mine." That is a without a doubt sign. Pat's letting us know that he's coming to the party. So she says to me, "Well, you've always had those gifts." I said, "But you have them too. You just didn't know what it meant." I know what it means because I've studied how signs can manifest. It can be a license plate. Some driver cuts you off. Look at the license plate. It might be Nana 41 and it's your grandmother trying to say hello to you. I mean, it's really real. And so
So you're doing that kind of work now, right? You're doing psychic work for others?
I'm learning it. And I had an initial really amazing experience. The first few times out, I was really, I don't know how it worked. I don't know how I got these answers that I did. You know, spirit gives it to you. But what happened was, like one of my friends, she lives in Greece. She's a psychic medium, and a good one. And she's just the kindest. I love her name is Elena, and she goes by Elena the Greek, but her real name is Constantina. But her professional name is Elena the Greek, and she's such a lovely, sensitive person, and she's a very devout Orthodox Christian, but she also says, "Well, I have my gifts too," and you know, so she's. I called her because I needed to start doing practice sessions with people that. Well, I didn't tell you this, but I joined a group that with a wonderful teacher to teach us about psychic and mediumship work and development, and that we all have it and how to access it. And her name is Linda Rao, and you couldn't ask for. I'm so lucky. I get the best teachers in life, and so she's been fantastic. So after the class, I joined an academy, and then we were encouraged to do readings, and I just didn't feel like I could do a reading with somebody. I didn't know how, so I called Elena and I said, "I don't want a reading. I just want you to mentor me because I need to know how to, I don't even know how to start it."
Mm.
So she tells me some things and we do a meditation and she says, "Now read me." And I just got so paranoid. I said, "No, no, no." She started laughing. She goes, "John, relax, close your eyes, da, da, da." So the first thing meant nothing. But then I said, you know, I had my eyes closed and I said, "I see your mother and I see these other people, well, I see your mother, I see these other people, and I see your grandmother. And to the right of your grandmother is this, it's kind of like a flat area of space with trees behind it." But I said, "It's just like an opening of land. And there are all these trees and shadows behind it, but it's so bright, I can't even look. You know, I can't even look, it's so bright." And I said, "I don't know what that means." And she says, "Well, my grandmother, my Nana, is buried in her village. And she said, in next week," and she goes, "You're right, it's my mother's mother. We're going to take her bones up out of the ground." They do some kind of a cleansing ceremony, or maybe they were taking her. I still don't know why they were doing that. But she said that the other people you see are the family members who are coming. So the reason I couldn't see was because she's coming out of the ground after being in it for a long time. So it's this pitch dark, and all of a sudden it was so bright I couldn't even see. And then that went on, and I heard a seagull, and I said, "Do you live near the sea?" And she goes, "Yes." And then I see this line. I said, "Are you planning a trip by boat?" Now I'm just throwing this stuff out there, not knowing anything. She goes, "In 3 weeks, I'm going to travel across Greece. I'm going to go to an island called Naxos on a boat." You're right. So then I would do all these readings, and they would really like it would blow me away, the accuracy. So it's just really, really interesting. I love it. And I really, I mean, at this stage in my life, I don't know how much time I have left in my life to really develop my skills if I'll ever get there, but I just love it. And for me, you know, I really felt disconnected spiritually when I felt my prayers weren't answered in the religion that I was brought up in. That's what I strongly believed in. And I was so I was so kind of hurt and dejected, and that I felt God wasn't there for me, but was there for everybody else. So I felt kind of rejected. But to be perfectly honest, I think that's how I felt about religion. But I do believe in God, God is not a man in the sky. To me, it's an acronym for good, orderly direction. Our body, you fall, you cut yourself, your body knows how to heal. There's an intelligence at work. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to know it, but I can certainly co-create with it. And I love the connections. And it's very affirmative and positive. And, I feel very fortunate that I'm on the path that I'm on, and that life, who knows where I'll go from here. Life is a journey. It takes you many different places if you let it carry you. So that's what I really feel is the path.
I really love how you have, like, you sail on top of this intelligence that you have access to. And you may have gotten, special access to it because of what you went through as a child with the grand mal seizures or whatever it is. You are so connected in everything you do. And I love how you love doing everything you do. And if somebody wants to have a psychic reading, or somebody wants to look at your paintings as possibly buying your paintings, or how would someone get in touch with you?
I do have, let's see, what is my website address? JohnMcCarthyArtist.com, I think.
JohnMcCarthyArtist.com.
I can't remember. I'm full of information. I can't remember my website.
We'll get that information.
We'll get there, huh?
We'll get there. We'll get there. I cannot thank you enough for being here today. You are an absolute rock star in my mind, and I am so grateful to know you, and I am so grateful to have this opportunity to get to know the John underneath all those talents that you have.
Oh, thank you, Laine. This has been fun, and I was a little nervous at the beginning, and now it's just like old times, huh?
Yes, old times. So